Today on The Riff, Jeremy and Preston sit down with Taylor McCall and Lance Linderman to talk about why your work matters and how it can matter even more when looking at the lens of kingdom versus empire. We hope today is helpful and hopeful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to another episode of The Riff. And I got to tell you, we've got a crowd with us today. The fire marshal's nervous, Preston, because I think the occupancy in this room is 4.
Oh, okay.
And we have 5 of us, 4 on screen. And you might not know Kaylin. We gotta get Kaylin. Kaylin, you can't see Kaylin.
Just
Kaylin,
peek your head in the camera.
would you come and talk to us about WWF sometime?
100%.
It's kayfabe, right? Not kayfob. I watched another thing on kayfabe. If you don't know what that is, we did a whole episode on it.
You're a fan of all this?
Kaylin is the fan of it. So I have found out I'm the second biggest WWF fan.
I didn't even know any of this till right now.
Okay, are you guys talking like WWE, but used to be WWF?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like Hulk Hogan.
This is wrestling.
The
I'm
Ultimate
like,
Warrior.
I need the...
Oh, yeah. Which, honestly, he was all bark, no bite.
Yeah.
I mean,
He was multiple people, wasn't he?
this is, I think, the Ultimate Warriors.
Yeah.
So we've got a crowd here, and I want to introduce our team. Now, we're coming fresh off. Some of you probably saw the master class. I believe that's part of a podcast too. Yep. And so maybe this is a follow-up for some of you. For some of you, it was wildly recommended, and today's the day you finally listen to The Riff. So I commend your choice there. Preston, introduce the Riff Raff to our guests here and a little bit about what they've been up to.
So Lance, well, I'll let you guys say a little bit of what you do, but Lance is from the Phoenix area. Taylor is from St. Louis, from Alton. And we had people text in during masterclass saying, no, I actually know where Alton is. So
Really?
Yeah, it's more popular than we think it is. And Lance, you run, correct me if I'm wrong, you run Banquet, which is like this for-profit world of getting the kingdom into the for-profit world type deal. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm being very general. I'm being general.
Yeah.
I thought Banquet was
Generally, yeah.
There's a microwave food company that I believe is also called Banquet.
99 cents
Well, there's
a tray.
also the Banquet beer from Coors.
You're from
the Banquet beer.
Yeah. And then Taylor, you wrote the book Brave Cities with Hugh Halter, and you run Brave City. You do Brave Cities, and that's more nonprofit world in the marketplace. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then now correct where I'm wrong, because I'm sure
Yeah, give us
me-
for those.
Well,
let's
it's
assume
actually
people
a wonderful crossover because Banquet. I think we probably connected. I mean, Lance and I work together now on a lot of different things, but I think we probably connected because Banquet was kind of doing their thing, primarily in the for-profit arena.
Okay.
Brave Cities, we had been, Brave Cities kind of became a thing maybe in 2020.
Okay.
The book came out, which is called Brave Cities, the Archaeology, Artistry, and Architecture of Kingdom Ecosystems. That came out in 2024, I think. I really don't, I can't remember if it's a year or 2 years ago. Do you know, Kate? Are you Caitlin? Kaylin? Yeah, I don't
T
know.
is silent. It's actually not even there.
I think the book came out in 2024.
Yeah.
And so Brave Cities is probably more of a focus in the nonprofit arena. But it really, and we've been talking about this all weekend, it really is just a church planting movement focused on planting churches outside of the traditional church space. And we call them kingdom ecosystems, which is kind of fundamentally what we believe the church was always meant to be anyways, an interconnected community through intentional homes, benevolent businesses, and justice works working together. Banquet is probably, Lance will frame it much better than this, but it probably is a heightened focus on incubating, raising capital, stirring vision, training leaders in the benevolent business space. Yeah. So I would say that's the primary focus of Banquet.
Yeah. The primary focus of Banquet, the way we say it anyways, is to what I really feel called to do and what's clear to me is to go and do the starting of the ecosystem, and that just requires startup capital for our, what we call, and you can read about this in the book, apostolic entrepreneurs. And so we'll do that, but we also do there's some crossover and play here because we also look for shepherds when we start ecosystems. And again, that's language that we think God actually gave the Brave Cities team to help us and other people that were doing similar things kind of focus this. But so we do raise some money through the nonprofit world. Some of that we're trying to get into the Brave City camp. Some of it we're trying to get into like to the shepherds on the ground in the ecosystem. But our main thing that we do is we start incubating business through the Kingdom ecosystem model.
Okay, so I got a question for you.
Yep.
There was a lot of people that will be listening. Well, not everyone. I'm not going to say everyone who listens has a job because that's not true.
No. Probably not true.
Probably not true. Most people who listen have a job. They're out there in the marketplace, for-profit or nonprofit. There's people who own businesses, want to start businesses. There's people from the masterclass or from you talking this morning that are like, I might even buy a business from what you said. So I'm going to zoom out and say, tell us, when you say kingdom ecosystems, I'm going to pick those two words apart real quick. What is the kingdom? And then we'll talk, what is the ecosystem? So when you say kingdom ecosystems, right? Mm-hmm. What is the kingdom that you're talking about? And let's try to go there for a second, and then I'll bring you over to the other word.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly redundant in the fact that the kingdom is an actual economy. It's a way of life. It's we use terms like city within a city, but it's the ancient story of God building an economy. Started with Eden, will end with this thing called the Holy City, New Jerusalem, and it's a dream that Jesus had. That the good news that he brought was that the kingdom would be on earth as it is in heaven. It is in direct opposition to what we would call empire, or what the scriptures might refer to as Babylon, or the world system. So the very short version is Jesus says in Luke 4, which is kind of like a prophetic moment where he said, I came to preach good news to the captives, or good news to the poor, liberty to the captives. That good news is the kingdom. It's a subtle subversion, a war being waged directly against the oppressive powers that are trying to keep hope and purpose and eternal life from everyone and everything. The earth, everything that is kind of here within, and I think, the image bearers of God, which is us. So that's the wordy but summarized version of what we would call the kingdom.
I like wordy but summarized. I like it.
And I would add that it's also the place that I've found that believers become most alive. And that I think people begin to start to wonder and fall into their purpose and place.
Interesting, using the word kingdom and using it as a very present tense. A lot of times, church tradition, I know that I have, probably a lot of people who are listening, some of them might share this, where I grew up hearing kingdom of God is something then and there, and that if I'm moral enough, then maybe I could one day become in the kingdom. Or
if I believe the right thing.
Which leads you to feel like, okay, I need to be a very good contributor in the empire so that one day I can go to the kingdom. Right. But what you're talking about is totally different. It's not a then and there, it's a here and now. So how do you think it's possible for a 2025 citizen of America what does kingdom look like then?
Yeah, and I do want to say one thing about that. I think for many it will be then and there because they've bought into that misinterpretation of the kingdom. We always say that you can have the kingdom now, or you can have it later. But one way or another, you have to die in order for it to come. So
that's a great phrase.
Well, and the point is like there's this inner man. Psychologists refer to it as an ego. This hungry monster that wants everything that Babylon has to offer. And there was a teaching of Jesus where he said, if you want to follow me, you've got to die every day. Take up your cross and follow me. Y'all familiar with that? And so that death, I think, is that self-death, killing that inner man or whatever, dying to that ego. You can have the kingdom now. But the kingdom is also going to be then and there for a lot of people who just think it's somewhere I'll go when I truly die.
Stop breathing.
Stop breathing.
Right.
But if that's true, that person will have missed so much opportunity.
From what we can tell.
Yeah.
From what we can tell, all the kind of data, the testimonies, the stories, the books, the ideas, from what we can tell, the kingdom life here and now just seems to be a lot better than what the world has to offer. So, there used to be this thought a lot in like 80s and 90s evangelicalism of I want to get saved. It's still present, of course, but I want to get saved so that I can go to heaven one day. And then people would be like, well, you can't just get saved and do whatever you want and then go to heaven. And I just think that entire idea is a misunderstanding of the good news that Jesus was saying. What he was saying was, I'm inviting you into a city now to thrive now. In all aspects of life.
And life abundantly.
Yeah, life and life, in relationship, in mental, like mentality, mental health, physical health. And these things are not determinative on how you actually feel in a moment. But he's inviting us into holistic liberation in a city, So if that idea, that paradigm of like, well, I just want to go to heaven one day is so misguided. It's like, oh, okay. Well, you can do that. That's fine. I would actually say to someone, nothing's wrong with that. But boy, like seriously, you are missing out on something really unique that is not about religion per se. That's not about your actions holding to some type of code, but it's more about an obsession and a pursuit of a treasure. I think Jesus taught us that the treasure in the field was the kingdom, right? So would that not be worth, if somebody came to me and said, you can have this treasure, but you got to sell everything for it, I would go, I'll do that. But again, I'm giving the contrast just because I think it's necessary for some people to wrestle with. If somebody just came and said, you can believe in Jesus and be saved, let's use that terminology, but you got to sell everything for that. That's hard to grasp. It's like, okay, why? And what does that mean? But Jesus wasn't saying that. Sure, he was offering us quote unquote salvation, but what he was offering us was the kingdom life, which is again in opposition to the oppressive powers that we see here and now. So now you're asking, or you're saying what in regard to that? Because I wanted to direct.
No, I'm just saying, that goes against what a lot of people intuitively learned or maybe strategically were taught that kingdom is then and there.
So how did we have it in America? As maybe
so I would say maybe you each give an example. One in Phoenix, one in East St. Louis, Alton area. Of give us one story or picture where you're like, I kind of think that's kingdom of heaven right here on earth.
Yeah.
Can you picture something like that? Something that you're like, I think that was kingdom work.
Because a lot of people would say, kingdom of
what
heaven.
is kingdom? Can I be a part of it?
Or it feels like a Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
Right? And we would want to use your phrase, we want to broaden those imaginations.
Yeah, so, and this one gets a little bit of raff. Hey,
that's
there it is.
You're in good company.
So when my wife and I moved into our current house, we wanted to check out the spots kind of around where we live, and we went to one of the local bars, and you pretty much had to be like a professional drinker to be there. This bar is the kind of bar that opens at 6 a.m. in the morning. There's guys there
it's 5 p.m. somewhere.
All day. Yeah, going all day.
Yeah.
And if you were to order like an old fashioned, they're going to just crack open a sugar packet and throw it in and call it a day, and it's not very good. And you also don't feel safe. In fact, our most famous serial killer was recently caught in a sting operation in one of these bars. There's about 6 or 7 of them around us. So when we moved in, we found this empty commercial space that used to be a bar that had been shut down, but the neighborhood hadn't had in 2 years. And so we were like, man, let's reopen it, but let's make it a place of peace. Let's make it a place of no violence. Can we teach the bartenders and the community here how to love their neighbors, how to welcome people in? And so we started a bar there, and it's been incredible. In fact, we can watch people come into the bar space and say to their friends without knowing who we are or what we've done, man, you guys will never believe this place, but this, they'll come in like, this is your first time here, but dude, it's so peaceful here. Everybody's so kind here. And we've actually never had a fight. We've never had a single violent outburst in over 2 years in an area that is known for bar fights. So I think that is one way, like we've all been kind of taught that if we're going to live the kingdom life, well, we have to go, there's only one pathway to that. It's to go through the ministry stream and go right up to the church and start preaching. But I actually think that maybe God wants us to just reopen spaces and reclaim them back for Him, and we have to think about how we do those maybe a little differently than we would in the traditional capitalist market. Yeah. It's not going to look exactly the same. So that would be one example.
Now, how in the world? Give me an example of how you. A part of the training for bartenders of how to make this a peaceful place. I mean, that's a very you can't argue with the results. That there's something there. Like what kind of things are you training?
We tell people right off the bat that this is first a place of just love. We want everybody to come in to feel welcome, to feel loved. The place is nice. It's kind of dirty. It's kind of like looks like a dirty dive bar, but it's nice. It's clean. We make good quality things there. But I think we just train and show it ourselves and just say like we actually tell people we don't fight here. Yeah. We don't engage in fighting. I think I told last night I'm part of a Mennonite community, so we actually don't even believe in violence at all. So that's one of my own distinctives. I know that's different from everybody else, but we really practice nonviolent tactics to kind of get in the middle of something if we had to, but we haven't even had to do that.
Who's kinder, your pub or Chick-fil-A?
Oh, Chick-fil-A for sure.
Okay. Well, if you're second, that's good.
Another thing is, the kingdom economy is truly all inclusive. We always kind of joke that the only people that really aren't welcome are the ones that won't welcome. So there is a line in the sand, but it's only for the ones who draw lines in the sand.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that is not moral relativism or universalism or whatever other ism. It's a deep longing to understand everyone along their journey and to try to architect what we would call a table that they can sit at. Yeah. Now, to live, I want to use this terminology, but I don't want to lose people in it. So you guys ask the right questions and prod at it if you need to. But to kind of be a so-called like citizen of the kingdom, it requires some serious sacrifice. That's why we talked about Jesus' teaching about self-death. But to sit at the table requires nothing. The table's here. So imagine, this is kind of how we diagram it. Imagine like 3 concentric circles, and this is based on a famous sociologist's idea of how societies work called the social set theory. And in the social set theory, you have, and in every city, you have a bounded set, a centered set, and a fuzzy set. And so imagine we are in Springfield, Missouri right now. Imagine in Springfield, you have this bounded set of people that they're really committed to the well-being of the city. Maybe they're corrupt, maybe they're misguided, whatever. But initially, they came together kind of in a covenant to be committed to the well-being of the city. Then you have this centered set of people that are centered around that vision, and they're working towards the well-being of the city along with the bounded set. We would call those, the first group, we would call them owners. The second group, we would call them workers. And then the fuzzy set are the people that live in Springfield, or they're somehow connected to Springfield. Maybe they're transient. Maybe they come in to see their kids in college, whatever. But they are not necessarily committed to the well-being of the city. They're just kind of checking it out, living here, enjoying what the city has to offer. Any bounded set person would want the fuzzy set people to become a part of Springfield and to work towards the well-being of Springfield. But in order for that to happen, they're going to have to make some sacrifices. They're probably going to have to buy property. They're probably going to have to commit to some type of work here. And they're probably going to have to start thinking about the purpose of what they're doing. So take that entire diagram or kind of architecture in your mind, and then just think of it through a kingdom lens. In a kingdom ecosystem, you have these culture holders, these owners that are really committed to the well-being of this economy, this Jesus-centered economy. And then you have workers that are also committed to it. They're not necessarily bound to it. They might come and go, meaning they might be there for 2 years, helping, working, architecting stuff. We call them table builders. But they're building the tables specifically to encourage the owners and workers, to bless them, and to invite the seekers to sit at the table and say, hey, let me tell you about some hopeful news. There's a kingdom. So imagine all of these people in different places in life. And we don't distinguish kind of in our language between the old kind of Christianese terms of lost and saved. And the reason we don't is because you could be a part of the worker class right now in a kingdom economy, and you go through severe tragedy, and you actually become a seeker. You get lost. You know what I'm saying? So
like you're saying, you can go back and forth.
You can go back and forth. Yeah,
Right,
you
yeah.
can experience great pain, and now you don't know what you are for a year. So you just need hopeful tables to sit at. So here's the point of all of that jargon is there's no in or out. And I don't know that there's anything more Jesus than that. Everybody's welcome to sit at the table unless you don't welcome everybody. And then we got a problem. Like if somebody walks in wearing a certain t-shirt or a sticker on their car or a certain colored hat or whatever, a certain set of beliefs or political ideology, and you don't want them there, then we don't want you there. And that's the only problem we face is the ones who aren't welcome. And that kind of seems to be the way in the kingdom of heaven too. Is
When he says like the prostitutes and tax collectors are ahead of you.
yeah.
You're like, what is that?
How is that possible?
How is that possible?
Because there's a virtue and an ethic embedded in kingdom DNA that the sick would welcome anyone. They would go, I can't judge. But those who think they are well, they think they have the ability to weed out who can come and can't come. And unfortunately, our institutions and our organizations are set up in such a way that despite how welcoming the leaders are, it creates a culture because of the types of people that it draws. It creates a culture of unwelcomeness without meaning to, because it's so centralized. Does that make sense? But when you have a decentralized, distributed network of tables, there is no central look, feel, race, gender, blah, 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 age, generation, ideology. You know, I could have a table over here that is really constructed in my neighborhood that connects to my neighbors in such a specific way, and yours over here. And then every once in a while, we just ask all the tables to come hang out at a cookout, and you see a beautiful kind of hodgepodge of people. You know, that to me is the most glorious display of a kingdom economy.
The table analogy is so helpful because you talked before about the church gathering on a weekend is a table. It's a table.
We call it a worship experience.
Yeah, worship experience is a table, but it's not more important than the other tables.
Yeah.
So I have a table, a literal table in my dining room
I've been there.
You have been there. Not in a while. I'm not holding it against you.
I didn't want to bring it up, but we can talk about it afterwards maybe.
Oh, is it the invitation you're waiting on?
I thought that's what you just gave me. So I was just going to tell you what.
He didn't love the table either.
Yeah, okay.
I'm telling how he set
I
up.
love the
didn't he?
table.
Oh, okay. Well,
want to go back.
you're welcome to come back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are you doing after this?
Later. But so like the neighbors come over to the table.
Yeah.
That table, everyone listening has a table like that, right? They're part of some condo, apartment, neighborhood. To say like it's so kingdom, and it's so helpful to hear from you all. That table is equally important, if sometimes not more important.
Could I adjust your language just a little bit?
Well, I don't know. It depends.
I would say can be.
Can be.
Is too obscure because it removes the intentionality, the necessity of intentionality.
Okay.
What I would gather about, let's say, your Sunday worship experience is that it requires a significant amount of intentionality. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like preparation, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What I don't want people to take from this is that, oh, cool, my table's a table too. No. It requires equal to or more intentionality than you put in your Sunday worship experience. It requires a deep kind of brokenness for the hurting in your neighborhood. It requires strategy. It requires thoughtfulness of what you're going to offer at that table. Like if I'm curating a table for a bunch of my friends from AA, I'm probably not going to offer them alcohol every time they come over. Right. It might be but that requires intentionality of knowing people's story.
And it's hard enough that as leaders, you have to name those tables together and help each other with building your tables and sustaining those good works and those good tables. So like in the Axiom ecosystem in Peoria, we have named, yes, we have a venue where the city meets at as a table, and we also come together and sing songs and have a worship experience. But we also have these other tables, and how are we putting our resources, efforts, and reallocating assets to it? And so
that's really helpful.
And including the people. How are we sending and commissioning and naming our people? How are we helping anoint them in their holy work? Otherwise, what ends up happening is you end up with a place where you can go to, and you might even step over. You guys tell a story about this. Maybe a homeless person on the way in, and you worship Jesus, and then you maybe step over the homeless person on the way out, and you go back to your normal life. We have to say like it's not just the building; it's elsewhere, but we have to be intentional about it. We have to create intentional.
We have a basketball program that we started in Alton, like if you're familiar with club basketball, AAU, travel basketball. It's called Beyond Basketball, and 2 months ago, two of our seventh grade players were baptized. Said they want to follow Jesus and wanted to do that in a kind of beautiful traditional water baptism. And every week we have a practice. We work on ideas like we've talked about. Love the process, not the outcome. What it means to be resilient, what it means to have character, what it means to work hard when no one's watching. And almost every week we tie those ideas to either the kingdom or to Jesus. At the end, we'll gather around and we'll kind of get in a little huddle, and we'll sometimes share one or two intangible values or virtues that we want to see come out of each other. We'll let them share, the coaches will share. And then we'll kind of do a little chant. Y'all have probably seen it before. Well, everybody will put their hands in and they'll go, beyond on me, team on, or beyond on 3, team on 6, or whatever. Well, that feels a lot like worship to me. Mm-hmm. That feels a lot like communion, because we remember the good things that God is doing together. Feels a lot like a corporate gathering. But again, like we talked about at lunch, we have been, especially in the West, but really all over the world, we've been so conditioned to think that all of those elements only can be found with a certain look in a certain space at a certain time on a certain day. And we just completely oppose that idea and that thought. What we do recognize is that a lot of people, not a lot, but a decent amount of people connect with God and purpose and hopefulness at a certain time, in a certain space, on a certain day. And we want that to be honored as a table, but it is not central.
Yeah.
It's not even more valuable than any other table. But I can't say that anything is a table.
Got it.
I think
that's
if
great.
you look
Super
at
helpful.
the world history and you think, starting from whenever it was to now, is how long could you have a church name in the upper left-hand corner of your paycheck? Like if you look at that line, it's a very small piece of that line. So for the fact that we have it right now,
and it's going to
weird.
end soon. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, there's no, and it's not the role of the church to guard that. I think it's a great opportunity to utilize it. But it has never been about what you're paid to do that makes you a minister. Right. And what I love what you're doing, both in the Phoenix area, in the Alton area, is you just refuse the thought that I'm not neck deep in kingdom ministry just because I don't get paid from a church. And those who are listening, so I want to throw out a few different things. If someone's listening here and their next step is not, I want to pastor a local church. Now, if that's your next step, come talk to us. We can always figure out what that looks like. But most people, that's not their next step. But they don't feel right now they would be doing kingdom. They might be waiting for a kingdom. What would you recommend them to start thinking about or to do?
I think that's in the book we talk about the phase of archaeology. I think that we talked about this earlier this morning with the staff too, that we have to engage our imagination, and this is with the Spirit, to look at the state of the city that we live in and the spheres of influence that we're in and the places that we're in, and start to dream about and ask God to show us where there's need. And I'll give you an example. There's a neighborhood we're doing work in Kansas City, and everywhere we went and talked to people, we found out that pizza wasn't allowed to be delivered there because it was too violent. So we went, all right, well, I guess we got to start a pizza shop. That was a marker for us that we went, this is like, it would be a really important thing for the community because they don't get served pizza here. They have to leave. They don't get they don't get to have it delivered to them. So we thought, okay, that could be a great
fascinating
kingdom endeavor.
Yeah.
So, and it's not always going to be, I feel like it's easier to see the kingdom of God in the hardest places. I think that sometimes in those places it becomes more evident. I'm not actually sure why that is. Sometimes there's something about maybe the poor living in that state that really just kind of brings out the very apparent needs. Sometimes in our empire world, we're tricked to believe that everything's okay, that we have everything we need here, but we don't. And so it can be harder to help people see how to begin this kind of work.
But you're saying like just find a need, right? Find where the need is. Is that what you're?
I say exercise the imagination. We had a guy come up to us yesterday that was just done with his job, but he was really wanted to pour into his kids and grandkids. And we're like, okay, you need to listen to that. We have people that want to start a pub, but are afraid of the risk to that. And they really believe that could be a place where they can be in community, in fellowship with others, and set a good table. Maybe it's volleyball once a month just in your park, and you set up a grill and you start grilling. We go, this is just going to be a part of our community's DNA. Like what would it look like if you were a missionary? Because in Alton, it's a band of 40 to 50 missionaries, and they're all figuring this out. So I think anybody listening, I just have to call it. You're a missionary, and how are you going to create a table in your neighborhood? And you could look at your affinity groups. You could look at your schools. I think God is probably in and interested in all of it to some degree. So just take some time to use your imagination.
But big picture, I think this distinction can be helpful for like lifelong endurance. We're not talking about like a missional community. We're talking about a holistic, interconnected economy. So as you begin to dream about tables you can architect in your neighborhood, also dream about who you can do this with all over your city. This is where like a traditional model, prevailing model church can be super helpful, because there tends to be a lot of like-minded people gathered in one room together. And you can go, all right, how can we get them out of this room as quick as possible, working together as much as possible in a covenanted, interconnected way?
I mean, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think about the kind of impact that would have if 3,700 people that go to North Point began to reorient their lives around that mission.
Oh, and I would say if
The
just 5%
the whole
of
country
them,
would probably be.
if just 5% of them oriented that way, I think it would change Springfield.
Well, you said earlier, one of you said, I'm just going to always assume it's both of you said this in unison, but this morning I wrote this down, that 100 missionaries can do more kingdom impact than 1 million Christians. 1 million attenders, I think was the deal. And for North Pointers who are listening, I mean, you were made for more. I mean, you're not made to sit, attend, and feel more moral. And obviously we would never, we would hope that we're always pointing those arrows out. But today, follow that nudge. What is God's Spirit? We really believe God's Spirit speaking to you. What does your neighborhood need from Jesus? What does this community need from Jesus? And if you're, one, I would say get the book Brave Cities as an opportunity just to have intentional imagination. And get a couple other business people, community people that are curious about this. Read it together. Talk about it. Brave Cities, wherever books are sold. And have that, go on this pursuit of what might God be inviting you into. And that's where purpose is. So I love that.
And what I would say with what you just said, Jeremy, is we know you don't want to. So that's really the posture, is we know that you don't want to just attend something and eke through life. This message, this prophetic word has literally nothing to do with shame or guilt or should have and could have. Has nothing to do with that. If you can honestly tell me that you're enjoying not really having much of a purpose and just attending a gathering and listening to someone else tell you what to think about God, I would go. I would
when you say it like that. Keep going.
I would say, then keep doing that for now.
Wow.
I just know you don't. I know you don't feel that way. I know the same fire that burns in every human being. We're all artists. We're all creators because we're created in the image of the Creator. We're all innovators. But all of that has been muddied up. We always tell our kids, sin doesn't make you bad, it makes you bound. Sin is a rope around your feet to keep you from running fast. It's mud up to your ankles. That's all sin is. So don't feel bad about it. Just stop so you can run fast.
Get free.
It's not something that you should be ashamed of. It's something that you should say, that's stupid. I want to run faster. I know I'm made for more. It's not an inspirational idea. It's a liberating idea. It's saying I'm imagining this guy that came and talked to us last night right in front of me. And this is kind of what I said to him last night. It was like, we know who you are. We're the same. Go do it, man. Why are you not? And with tears in his eyes, he was like, I don't know. And what I would say to him over a long period of time is, the reason you're not is because you've been conditioned to live a life of fear, but you're not that person. All of us want to create, innovate. Maybe not, some of us are more risk averse than others, but what Jeremy's saying is not shame on you for just being an attendee and not doing something significant in the world. That's ridiculous. What he's saying is, we know that's not what you want to do. No kid goes, I just want to go and sit in a room. Every kid wants to create and imagine and play and risk and break. And then as they grow, they're taught don't do those things. As they grow, they're taught fear and they're taught caution and they're taught to pursue stability over everything else. We're saying, let's go back, like Jesus said, to being kids.
I love it. Well, Lance and Taylor, you guys have been a gift to us in several different venues here the last couple of days. Thanks for being with us. Again, it's time to run. If you're listening to us, run into the life that God's called you to run into, because there are people on the other side of that obedience really will be the difference between them experiencing kingdom or not. And so encourage you to do that. We're going to put a link on this site where you can get Brave Cities, the book there. And
we also have a podcast.
Oh, okay. So if you're looking for a second favorite podcast, we'll link that as well. What's the name of the podcast in case they don't go to our link?
You can just type in Brave Cities, but it's called Brave Cities Gray Pages.
Okay.
And as a doctor, am I right?
Yeah.
The idea behind that is when you're writing a dissertation or a proof on a theory, it's called a white paper.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an expert analysis of what you've kind of pursued for years. And we feel like we're as far from experts as you can be. So we call them gray pages.
That's awesome.
So that's
awesome.
what our podcasts are, is they're basically us musing over theories and ideas that we hope one day to maybe a little expert line will come out of it.
I love it. Well, thanks for being our guest. Preston, thanks for hosting with us today.
My pleasure.
And Kaylin, can't wait for that WWF episode that we'll do sometime
it's
soon.
going to be great.
Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.